Present.
All right, autofocus. Okay. Get a lot of questions about autofocus.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you do too.
Probably one of the hottest topics.
Definitely. So a lot of features in here, but I definitely just try to, encourage people to just ask a simple question when they're shooting. Is your subject moving or not moving?
Gotcha.
If it's not moving, then you don't have to worry about dynamic autofocus.
Just get a lot easier.
Settings. Exactly. Just you don't have to pay attention to those other custom settings or some of those other features. Okay. If your subject's moving, then you definitely have decisions to make. Okay. So like anything else we've seen with the camera, you can choose to use the automation, or you can take some control back and make decisions, on your own. Now the D7000 has a different design now with this front switch. To get in and out of my autofocus settings, I'm going to press this front AF button here. Now I just take my thumb in the back dial, and I'm going to choose my AF mode back here. Or I take my index finger on the front wheel, and that's how I'm going to make some of my decisions, especially when we talk about dynamic autofocus or working a single cursor.
I think it's worth, because that used to be, or on some of the other camera bodies, that was a CSM switch up front.
Definitely.
And they changed it, because I know it's a little weird that it's changed, but I remember that switch has really thrown me a couple times because it inadvertently gets changed.
Sure.
So now you actually have to press a button and flip a dial to change it.
Exactly. So same features.
A little different, but it's good, I think.
Yeah, I mean, same principle in terms of that AFS for single servo and AFC for continuous. So that's exactly what we're talking about here. Okay. Now, what you have with the D7000, I'm just going to scroll back over here, is that if I'm not sure whether to be an AFC or AFS, I can go to AFA and let the camera decide. Okay. One click over is what we talked about AFS. If I have a subject that's not moving, they're static, stationary, I can be on AFS. I can basically press halfway down the shutter, and the camera won't constantly adjust the focus. I can basically lock and hold and recompose.
So that'd be good for landscapes, portraits, people aren't moving, anything like that.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. Some people choose to use the back button here, the autofocus lock button, but for me, I like to keep it on AFS again and just do the lock and recompose with my finger halfway to press on the shutter. Okay,
when you say the back button, because we talked about how you can go in the menus and kind of assign those buttons to different things. You mean the AE, AF lock button?
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, so that's single.
That's single. AFC is continuous. So now when I'm halfway to pressing the shutter, you're going to see that the camera's going to constantly readjust that focus as I'm swinging the camera around. So we talk about AFC, we talk about movement, action.
If I had a football player running at me,
sure,
that'd be a time where I'd want to do something like that.
Definitely. Wildlife.
Anytime somebody's moving.
Anytime someone's moving.
Gotcha.
So that's AF mode. Next decision, take my index finger on the front dial over here. We have auto. We said that we can leave some of the decisions up to the camera. When I'm on auto, you see how there's no one outline? When we have auto here, that means that the camera's going to decide what my subject is. I'm leaving that decision over to the camera. Now, if I one click again with that command dial, see how now I have a very dedicated, clear one focus point. I'm in charge now, so the camera's only going to focus where that one focus point is.
All right.
It's not going to scan the other surrounding focus points. Now, the nice thing about this is that I can actually recompose. I can do something off-center. I can toggle my focus point with my thumb on this back wheel. And again, the camera's only going to focus on that one little focus point.
So you're just using the multi-selector to put it into the area that you kind of want to concentrate on.
Exactly. So you want to be a little more creative. You don't want something dead center. I can toggle all the way, far left, far right, top, bottom. Okay. But what if my subject's moving? I have to be quick enough to try to move that little cursor all the way around. Not, generally not that successful. Difficult to do. So that's why you have options for dynamic autofocus. Instead of just having one active, I can have 9, I can have 21, I can have 39 active. So if my subject is moving somewhat predictably, I can call up a grouping of 9. And it's going to scan the surrounding focus points and try to predict where my subject is going to go. But if my subject is moving somewhat unpredictably, I have to call up more of these little autofocus points. I have to call up more of these little autofocus points. Now, if you read in the instruction book, basically it says, if your subject is moving very unpredictably, that's when you would call up the largest grouping if you can't really predict where your subject is going to go, and that's
All of
where you
them.
would be at 39.
So that begs the question, which is, why not always leave it
Sure.
at all of them?
Sure. Well, like anything else, you can imagine if I go back to 9 here, it takes the camera system less time to scan 8 other little focus points than it does 20,
Gotcha.
or 38. So that's why it always depends on how tight you're shooting. Again, whether you're shooting loose, we say wide angle, or telephoto. So for me, if I'm shooting telephoto, my subject is moving somewhat predictably, I keep it to a tight pattern, of 9.
Okay.
Maybe for a bird in flight, you can widen that field of focus points to 21 or 39. Okay. Now, my last click here, you'll notice that tiny little 3D.
3D.
Yeah.
Everything 3D has to be good, right?
Well, yes and no.
3D's all the rage.
It has a very specific application. Okay, so I get asked about that a lot. 3D, just remember that it has a color memory component.
Okay.
Camera's smart enough, just simply, is that it's smart enough to memorize the color of your subject. Okay, so basically what happens is the camera is going to, again, scan those surrounding focus points. Now, instead of, my focus point where I initiate first, never moves, right? I always decide where my focus point, whether I'm on single or dynamic. On 3D tracking, the camera can decide to actually move my focus point cluster as my subject moves, around that field.
Gotcha.
Now, not a good setting to use if you're shooting, say, with a competing color in the background to your
So
subject.
if somebody's wearing a green shirt and there's a lot of
On a
green
green-
grass
exactly.
and green wall.
Then it could get
It's a really
confused
bad
and
scene, isn't
jump
it?
around. Yeah, that's not a time to use the
Green
3D
wall.
tracking. Yeah,
Ugh.
definitely not a time to use that. Or if you're shooting what we again call loose. Okay, so if the camera may get confused with what your subject is and then what the background is. So again, if you're shooting tight, no competing color, definitely you can give that a try. Again, for a moving subject.
All right, so to kind of bring this all back around, so if I'm shooting landscape, portrait, not moving, what would you recommend?
S. Definitely AFS, and I'll show you again over here. We're going to press the info button, press the AF button up front here. I'm going to toggle back.
On the back dial with your thumb.
With my thumb on the back dial, I'm going to be in AFS here.
And then you just use...
And generally, I'm going to be on a single cursor, and then I have control where to move that focus point.
Okay. So from there, we move to something that's moving kind of predictably, like a runner, a track and field. You've got a runner running around the track, so you kind of know where he's going.
Then I would definitely be on AFC for continuous. Okay. And then I would choose that grouping of 9. Again, if he's moving somewhat predictably, but I definitely need help. I want to incorporate more of those autofocus points to help me out and track.
And you can still move that group of 9 around based on how you want to frame him in the whole frame.
Well, yeah, so again, if he's moving across my frame, the great benefit of dynamic is that I can move that whole cluster far left or far right. I can pick up my subject early, right? Because you have to tell the camera what my subject is.
Okay.
So when I was shooting motorsports, I would always make sure that I would try to pick up a car early on as I'm panning. The system's helping me out in tracking my subject instead of just keeping it, dead center.
Yeah.
Now, I'll just end with one important thing to pay attention to in the menu. We said when you're on dynamic autofocus, like we are back here, okay, I have to just come back to the menu. On autofocus in my custom setting menu, come up over here and basically check out what I have my focus tracking lock on. Because when we talk about a subject movement, we have to make sure that we want the camera to either lock on my subject or maybe we want the camera to constantly readjust. Okay?
There could be other things moving in the scene too.
Definitely. If I'm trying to take a picture of you, a ref, jumps in between us.
Back in my football days.
That's right. Back in your football days.
Back when I was quarterback for the
That's right. I don't want
for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Things you learn. I don't want the
News to me too.
That's right. I don't want the camera to jump to the referee. I want it to stay locked on you. So then I could keep it on long. So again, the camera holds, doesn't jump here. But maybe photographing a wedding, and all of a sudden I want the camera to just constantly readjust, and I want it to move and jump quicker. I can take it off of normal and I can put it on short. I can turn lock on off completely.
Okay.
Something a lot of people don't realize. So if you want it to snap and move around and readjust, I can change that.
Okay.
So just something to think about if you come back here and you're like, I'm not really sure what focus, track, and lock on does. Come back to our
Perfect for this menu
question mark.
too.
Absolutely. Tells us exactly what's going on back here and why I would make decisions for long, short, or to turn it off completely.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a very good tip for this menu especially. Just hit
Sure.
the question mark. Can you go back one real quick?
Sure.
I want to. So there's one called Focus Point Wraparound.
Ah, okay.
So I think that, because a lot of these settings that are in the menu here are actually things that we already changed on screen. We just changed with the buttons
Sure.
and the dials. But that's I think that's a pretty cool one too.
Yeah, let me call up pressing the info button again. Okay. Now that I'm back here, we're going to see, I'm going to actually go back to a single cursor, so this makes more sense here. Okay. So again, I'm just taking my index finger here, I'm going to go back to one single focus point. Normally, if I don't have it on wraparound, when I toggle all the way here with my multi-selector wheel,
It stops.
it stops. But wraparound, think of it like a loop. It's going to just bounce right to my other side again. So it's just saves you time.
Kind of a personal preference, I guess. It's not going to
Definitely.
affect the quality.
No. It's
The
just,
quality of
it's
autofocus.
speed.
It's
Yeah,
just-
some people like it that it's a continuous loop.
Great.